Hi there, and welcome to the Labari Media Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph. So, on today's show, we talked to the Uber country manager for Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Yes, we talked to Marjorie Saint Lot, who is now also going to become apparently the country manager for Pakistan, which is kind of a ways off from the African continent. So, we talked to her about Uber, her journey, and talked about some other products Uber is launching. So we got the exclusive first. If you're hearing this, you probably have heard the announcement that Uber has launched a deal with Enterprise Ghana for insurance for drivers, which is interesting. So yeah, we talked about that. We talked about partnerships in Ghana. We talked about regulation and a bunch of other topics. I think you like this one. Okay, and welcome back. So today we are talking to Marjorie Saint Lot. Hi, Marjorie. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Also, I'm doing pretty well. How have you been so far since? Are you in Ghana currently, or are you in another country?
I'm in Ghana. I'm in Ghana, correct, right now, yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And how has it been working with Uber so far? I know that last year you were kind of made manager of Uber Ghana last year, I believe, 2022.
It's been 2 years now, actually. To be honest, I joined the Ghana Force in November of 2021, and I think yes, it was officially announced in January of 2022. But yeah, it's been 4 years now. It's gonna be 4 years in November. I've been with Uber. It's been an amazing ride so far. And even like a couple of weeks ago, I've been given a third country. So
Oh,
I'm also looking after on the interim basis on Pakistan. So it's quite far from the region, but
wow.
there's a lot of similarities with our region as well.
Wow, that's kind of cool. So, I mean, we know you're also managing Cote d'Ivoire. Is there a
Exactly.
similarity between Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana from your
Oh, they're
perspective?
sister countries. They're sister countries, right? I think the only thing that really truly differs is the official or main language, which one being French, the other one being English. But other than that, many families have cousins in Ghana, right, along the border. So they're sister countries. So there's multiple similarities, but there are differences, and I think some of the differences are linked to probably the colonial culture that both
Hmm,
countries, which were different.
nice. I know you came from, I think, the telecom industry. Like you're working for Orange before you moved to Cote d'Ivoire. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I worked for Orange within Cote d'Ivoire, and I helped them build their external growth strategy across the region, so extending into Burkina Faso and Liberia, as well as help them develop new verticals. So I was leading projects like Orange Bank in the region, Orange Energy, Orange Content, and whatnot.
Okay. And how was that transition going from that industry to basically transportation with Uber?
To be honest, it's been a fun and relatively smooth transition because, to be honest, we're talking about tech adoption and pushing usage, and this is something I was accustomed to within working within Orange. Right? It's talking about creating new business models that are adapted to the region, and that's also something that I was working on as well in multiple sectors, actually, with Orange. Um, so it's just a lot of similarities, even though it appears to be very different. And there was obviously like a learning curve on the
Mm,
hardcore transport and urban mobility. But it wasn't the first time I was falling into urban mobility. I had the opportunity a few years back, which probably won't hide how old I am, but working in transport with Veolia Transdev in France. And that's about like urban mobility and interurban mobility. So it wasn't the first time. I've
mm,
also, when I was like earlier on in my return in Ivory Coast, I've developed project to reinsert ex-combatants in the taxi industry. At the
oh,
time, we reinserted 5,000 people in the taxi industry. So mobilizing resources, building the business model around that. So again, like I mean, it was new, but it wasn't that new.
nice. So you basically have a lot of experience. So now we're coming straight to Uber now. So I want to discuss about, Uber in Ghana and basically how it has been since you've been at the helm of it. Like, can you describe what the current, like, basically what has the evolution been for Uber in Ghana since you've taken over?
Oh wow. Okay, since I've taken over, I think the big thing, we've been in the country for 7 years, and in any stories, there's ups and downs. One critical matter that really reconciles since I've taken over, it's about consolidating our strength, working on some of our weaknesses, and improving that, and continuing leading the space when it comes to safety. And what I mean by consolidating, it's really improving the experience, improving the like cash card or card acceptance, for example.
Mhm.
It's improving the driver experience as a whole, from a support perspective, and even from an Uber Pro perspective or loyalty program for drivers. It's also accelerating vehicle access. Um, so we saw the launch, of Move in the country, but also the
Yeah,
acceleration of that project. It's also, and tapping into, I see some of our weaknesses, creating an Uber Comfort product, because this we realized that people needed AC in our vehicles here, and that was, we
hmm
need to create a product where you can guarantee have that guarantee of AC and that guarantee of experience where you can pay by card and feel fresh from point A to point B. So that came through
yeah,
with Uber Comfort. So it was different angles. It's also extending our footprint in the country. So we went from just being along the coastline, between Accra and Takoradi in some sense, and then a bit of Kumasi. Then now we went to segmenting this. So we have a Accra business. We're in Kipkos. We're in Takoradi. We're in Kumasi. We're in Sinyani. We're in Tamale. So it's extending our footprint. We went through the question of how we extend our safety portfolio, and I think there, and or improving our driver identification processes. So we
yeah.
were the first one to in the market, ride hailing, to oblige Ghana card. So it's completely reinforced across the country right now, which is great from a safety perspective. And we need to go further, right? So maybe I'll stop there.
Okay, yeah. So I want to touch more about the safety stuff because over the years, Uber has been rolling out lots of safety features for the drivers and also the riders as well. Like for instance, we know that I think this year you've rolled out the audio recording feature for both drivers and
Yes, yes.
um, riders. So yeah, so I want to know basically how do you get feedback from basically your drivers and your riders about what safety initiatives to roll out? Do you look at maybe social media? Like where are you getting the direct feedback from?
We look at everything, to be honest, like customer feedback has been shaping the quality of like the ride sharing services that we rolled out in Ghana, specifically for safety, whether it be through um, the 24/7 customer support, the driver ratings, the safety, like the reporting of safety incidents. That's our internal channels, or internal tools to listen to the market, or whether it be through what's following what's happening from a social on social networks and in the city as a whole, whether it be with discussions that we're having with law enforcement, or roundtables that we're having with drivers. Every single one of these touch points drives insights and defines the kind of safety products that we need to roll out. So you're right. Like, I mean, our latest one and our latest feature, I'm super happy about this one, is audio recording, that we've rolled out in all of our cities, allowing a rider and a driver to record, what's happening within the vehicle, and to ensure that they leverage that recording to settle perhaps disputes, or to report a safety incident, right? And I think that's fantastic to be able to use the technology in that way. We've obviously, like, these audio recording are encrypted. I personally cannot even listen to it myself.
Mm,
And the person that records it cannot actually have access to it anymore. It's completely encrypted, and they can only be decrypted by a specific safety team internally, that will leverage that to assess either a dispute or or a safety incident, obviously that audio recording needs to be linked to the support request for it to be encrypted or decrypted, should I say? So that's our latest one. But there's been many other ones. You know, the fact that we have partner injury and protection available for both our drivers and our riders. Our in-app emergency button is also one of the newest products that we rolled out this year by actually having a private security team that responds. So it's in partnership with Aura, and they dispatch armed security to the location within minutes of an emergency and help coordinate first aid support. Another one that's really cool is like Right Checks. You know, that came out about a year and a half ago, and that really allows you to detect unusual stops in the course of a trip. It sends notifications to the driver and rider just to confirm that everything is actually going well.
Yeah.
But yes, and then, you know, like the basic like GPS tracking that allows you to share your trip with your family members, to and so they can actually follow your ETA in real time and follow exactly where you are real time, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who send me the ETAs when they're on a trip, come where they were hanging out, something like that. That's actually a cool feature. So internally, how do you track maybe like, you know, I don't know, over the years people have complained either online or through other access means. How do you like measure to make sure that okay, these safety implementations are actually making the impact? Like, how do you measure to make sure that okay, this is actually working, and maybe the reduction of safety or incidents are getting reduced?
That's a super good question. It's actually quite technical. I'm just trying to think how I can answer it without like boring people that are listening to us. But we're a data driven business, right? And definitely like on every trip there's data collected. On every trip when there's a report there is data maintained and monitored. So we're able to assess as you roll out a feature, if reports have like increased or lowered or improved. We also do like some interesting things around how would I say this? Ensuring typically a couple of things. Ensuring that you have the driver that's always you have the right driver, right? That's leveraging our face recognition software. It's also we leverage some reinforcement measures to ensure that you know the 12-hour driver limit is respected, that
Mhm.
speed limits alerts are provided, and we monitor dangerous driving behaviors. And you can test this by the data that's collected throughout the trip. So these different elements, these different data points are actually measured and followed and analyzed by specific teams that are not in the day-to-day operations. These teams are sitting somewhere in the world and they're focusing on a crawl typically and say, hey, we rolled out, I don't know, let's talk about you know, when we roll out the facial recognition,
Yeah.
how many times has it been, does it fail? Like how many times does it, do you get a renewed occasion? And you
Yeah.
measure these different elements and you can see if your feature is working and it is improving safety in the whole. And we have specific moments where we generally you get the results of these analysis and you're able to make the right decisions, right?
Yeah.
I think the fundamentals and the basis on which we build safety and we build tech to respond to our safety concerns are our community guidelines. We have very strict community guidelines, which acts as a how-to for both riders and drivers. These guidelines apply to everyone who uses the platform, and it really drives the element of controls that you're going to put in to ensure that these community guidelines and principles are respected. And so we're really really proud, and it's a genuine and long term commitment that we've taken to tackle some of these safety concerns. And I want to say that safety is for everyone, and this is where you know
Mhm.
when we talk about women's safety. One of the
Yeah.
latest things we've done this year typically is to give a choice to women drivers to only provide their transport services to a woman rider. So we recognize that you know there are times in the day or there's moments where or areas where you just want to have a fellow woman that that you're taking from point A and point B. And we're able to make that available as well.
Does that also apply to the female riders? Like, can they also request maybe a female driver, or is it just for the drivers?
Not yet. Not yet. It really applies for women drivers that have that that have that choice, right? So it's a women rider preferred. I think there's been cases in certain countries where we had attempted to do like a women only product, and I think these are
Mm-hmm.
subjects that will come back on the table, right? We're even looking at, I think in the US, we're talking about Uber Teens. So building a product that can transport your teens and whatnot. So as we go along and as we study the needs of each cities in which we're operating in, we will definitely be building those right products.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I think you mentioned the US and how they're building some features there before it gets rolled out to the rest of the world. So I want to talk about, avenues of innovation when it comes to ride sharing or in Ghana. So what are you looking at to maybe potentially exploit when it comes to different features, innovations in Ghana specifically, or maybe in Cote d'Ivoire? Like, are you looking to maybe look at like electric cars? Are you thinking about other ways where you can be basically push past the competition? So what other ways are you looking at to innovate with Uber in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire?
You want me to open up my secret box? Um, you know, like the rise of ride hailing fundamentally has altered how we discover the complexities of of our cities. And I think since our inception, Uber has played a critical role as a collaborative partners to our cities in elevating their mobility options, right? I've just shared with you how we can look at more inclusivity as we're thinking about safety and a woman rider preferred product. I think there's opportunities to render ride hailing across the board. Today, we're only in a few cities. And I think there's definitely opportunity to extend footprints, to strengthen and develop the different mobility options that are available in those smaller cities, closer to the existing usage in those cities. Um, we're also keen to build more products that are going to fit the needs of businesses. And then definitely, I mean, you saw us launching electric bikes in Kenya.
Hmm.
We're seeing and we're hearing the government talking about and doing some green mobility or urban, yeah, greener mobility consultations. So definitely, the question of going greener is going to come at some point, sooner rather than later. Um, we will definitely leverage these opportunities. I think where we've shown innovation in a lot of ways is also in the way we're able to capitalize on, like smartphone penetration, payment options and whatnot, and there's a lot of room to go further in terms of payment options. um I don't know if some of the riders in the crowd noticed there's Uber Cash, and you can actually load up your wallet now and use Momo. So there's different things in which different angles, but clearly like safety has been the way that we've clearly differentiated ourselves in this market
Yeah.
and
Okay.
set the
So I
tone.
wanted to, yeah. So yeah. So you've been focusing on safety, and also you've been doing some partnership lately that we've seen in Ghana, especially. I know that you recently partnered with the Ghana Football League as far as a partnership. Taking fans to games and whatnot. So I wanted to ask more about where you're looking to do partnership because, in Ghana, we have our December in Ghana events, lots of people coming down from diaspora. So are you looking to partner with more, like this, more tourist establishments to basically try to partner with them to help with the tourism activities in Ghana?
Definitely. I think, and every year, maybe we don't make a lot of noise about it, but we support, a lot of the events that are happening in December, and to support the diaspora as they're thinking of like as their home. But we're keen to establish partnerships with cities to bring more powerful economic benefits. I'll give you some examples, some of the things that we've done, like not necessarily in Ghana, but it kind of gives you a sense of where we may go here. We've
Hmm.
recently launched a big partnership with Air Cote d'Ivoire, which is the main airline in Ivory Coast, but it covers also riders that are coming into the city from different parts of the region, even from Accra, from Lagos, from Johannesburg, from Kinshasa, from Dakar. We've partnered up in Ghana with Access Bank to drive card usage on the platform. And there's going to be some very interesting things happening on the driver side with that partnership as well, so to be followed. And then, like as we're speaking right now, we're launching a big partnership with Enterprise, where we're looking at 360 insurance products for our drivers. We believe that drivers should be thinking about um, health insurance. They should be thinking about life insurance. They should be thinking about pensions. They should be thinking about long-term savings. And this is why we're making these things available to them. So when we think about partnerships, yes, we're thinking about partnering up with the tourism industry on one end, but we're also trying to bring more values to our riders, and more importantly, we want to take care of our drivers.
Awesome. Okay, so I wanted to now shift focus more on basically the regulatory environment. I know you've been sometimes working with the government, especially to make sure that you're in the basically right lane. I wanted to ask about how the relationship with local government entities is like when it comes to regulation. Like, basically, are you guys talking most of the time about, making sure that you're in the right field? Because there's been some I guess I can say disturbances when it comes to drivers asking for more compensation, things like that. So, how are you basically interacting with the local entities and the local players in the field to make sure that you're given the right benefits or just on the right path?
Very good question. So, first of all, I mean, Uber is super supportive of regulation, and we remain committed to working with all stakeholders to find ways for earners to easily obtain economic opportunities while providing enhanced mobility for riders. And we've done that since the first day in the market. We're pro regulation. We engage regularly with the regulators to shape the progressive framework of our industry. Unfortunately, like most countries, their transport acts were done before the proliferation of smartphones and e-hailing. And so that requires a lot of best practice sharing and helping regulators shaping the future of the regulation in the markets, both from industry perspective, but also from a broader gig economy perspective. And as we're thinking and as we're looking how the sector has developed, so you just saw the launch of the smart driver licensing
Mhm.
that's going to be rolled out by March 2024. We're seeing in the last couple of years the interconnection of systems with the Ghana card strengthening the identification processes for both drivers but also their vehicles. And we've leveraged that, by requiring like the Ghana card as a requirement document to onboard onto Uber and perhaps even further, right? So I think it just shows to you that we are walking like with them, with the regulator. We're helping shaping the future of the framework, and we're also trying to leverage digitalization as much as possible to ease up the processes, right? From a onboarding perspective, but also from a control perspective. When you think of the needs a government may need to control or to see what's happening from a right healing perspective. I think if we want to go further than that, and as I mentioned earlier about our partnership with Enterprise, it's also
Yeah.
our way for us to pave the way and say, hey, there are opportunities to build some things in the independent contractor world. And a good example is what Ivory Coast has been doing in that. For the last 3 years, the social benefit um, Department of State has launched an independent social benefit program, allowing for an independent contractor or an informal worker to actually get access to social benefits. And they've been able to enroll drivers within the Uber base from day one. So it's just to show you from an intention perspective that we're able to execute and help government roll out their programs, and B, shape and provide ideas of where the policies should go. I think when even today when we're looking at green mobility, and the transport ministry is doing some consultations, um, at some point there's going to be some consultation with the ride hailing industry, so that we can also provide some of the best practices and some of the learnings that we're getting in other countries where we're leading in green mobility. I can think about some of the European countries where we're pushing very hard, in the UAE where we're pushing very, very hard, and just recently in Kenya, where we've launched green bikes and whatnot, and really part of the conversation around green mobility. And I believe that here in Ghana, the same story is going to happen. We will be part of these conversations. We will help fill and build a future of transport at the regulatory level as well in Ghana or in Ivory Coast for that matter.
Cool. I think you also mentioned the term independent contractors. I wanted to ask, I don't know if you can answer this question, but in the US, there's been a lot of pushback from drivers who want to basically not be seen as contractors or more as employees. Is there any fear, or is Uber looking at maybe some African countries when it comes to drivers maybe not being independent contractors, being looked more as employers, because the public also looks at them as drivers are working for Uber when they're more driving for themselves, but using Uber as a platform. So is Uber looking at, parts of Africa as saying that there potentially could be that push for Uber contractors to become employees?
The reality that in our markets, drivers drive for multiple platforms.
Hmm.
They're not, exclusive to any platforms. And the shape of our regulations is completely different. So I think today, and this is what I was referring to, I think our our commitment is to help shape the future of our markets, and from a regulatory perspective, knowing that we're in a completely different social and economical environment in Africa.
Okay, so I think beforehand in the conversation we mentioned about female riders or female drivers being able to have options where they can pick female riders. So I want to talk more about other groups as far as maybe even especially persons with disabilities. On the app, there's well, maybe I haven't seen it, but maybe is there any, I guess, accessibility features for people in Ghana? For instance, maybe I have an uncle who may have a wheelchair and want to, get him in an Uber, but the option is not available for Uber cars which have wheelchairs, things like that. Is Uber working on any sort of accessibility features in the future now or in the future?
So we strive to continuously expand the options available to people with disabilities, and we're committed to providing inclusive products that meet our users' needs. Uber Assist is available in several markets in SSA, and was created to ensure that riders with disabilities can get to where they need to go without difficulty. At the time being today, that product is not available yet in Ghana, but we're continuously working closely with various stakeholders to improve our offering, and to see how we can support the needs of people with disabilities in all of our markets where we're operating.
Okay. So basically, there could be possibly that we may see some of these features rolled out over time because it's in, as you said, it's in South Africa, but not yet in other regions.
Yeah, it's not yet rolled out in West Africa, but it's definitely something. I've had multiple discussions actually in Ivory Coast on these subjects, um, and I think those opportunities are still being assessed.
Right. Okay. So I just want to, we're just about wrapping up, but I want to talk about Uber in the future. So now I think when Uber launched in, I think 2017 in Ghana, I think, unless I'm wrong, basically you were
2016.
2016. Thank you very much for the correction. Yeah, I think you were kind of one of the only, not say only, but you were one of the most looked at brands to launch in Ghana. But now we're fast forward 2023 and we have lots of other options, whether it's Bolt, Yango, other competitors. So I want to look at Uber as far as the future. Like, What is your current roadmap as far as, trying to push and be a little far ahead of your competitors when it comes to maybe pricing or maybe other features that your competitors don't have?
You come back with this, right? No, to
I'm
be
trying to get
honest,
something.
oh, you won't get anything out of me. What I will tell you is that we will always lead through safety. I think safety is what really differentiates us in the market. I think we will lead. We will continue leading through innovation, creating the right products, and right products mean right pricing, right positioning. This is how you saw Uber X Share also being board in Ghana, right? Um, and we will continue to not only build new products from an innovation perspective, but even from a segmentation perspective, ensuring that we cover all segments and we go further in our offering. And that means creating even greater, more opportunities, economic opportunities in the market. So I'll stop there. I know I didn't give you much, but I know I also give you lots.
Yes, that's very true. Okay. So yeah, just to wrap up, just talk about you for a second. So, okay, you've been with Uber since 2019. So I guess what's next for you? Like, are you looking at maybe being part of more Uber? I think you're part of some groups in Uber. I think you are part of an Uber for women, if I'm correct.
Yes, I lead, sorry, the women at Uber community for SSA. I also lead the women driver strategic leadership for Middle East and Africa as a side gig. And yes, I'll wait for your question.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask, but so what's for you, what's the current challenges working or basically managing two countries, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana? What are your current challenges at the moment?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, right, it's now three countries. I think as an individual, it's amazing to have this opportunity to share and to learn across now three markets. Each market's have their singularities. I suppose if I had to identify one challenge would be to have the same energy across all countries at any given moment. um, and and it's a really cool and intellectual exercise, to be honest. It's probably one of the best muscle workouts that I could get. Right, is you flip from one discussion, one when you're talking about Ghana, and then you move on to another call. You're talking about Ivory Coast, and you move on talking about Pakistan, and you go back again, and then sometimes you talk about all three at the same time. So it's it's quite an intellectual exercise, and and that's why I talk about the best like muscle like workout that you can think of, and to be able to do that consistently on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, like it's a really exciting time in my life right now, where I'm able to spread my wings and share and grow across those markets.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think on that we can definitely wrap up. So thank you, Marjorie. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.